Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shauna from Shine Your Heart. Today we are doing a sew along for the barrel pant, and you've seen me post these. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me post these pants right here. These were made with a lightweight linen, but today I want to create the barrel pant in a lightweight denim. So if you've seen other creators make barrel pants, typically what they're doing is taking two pair of jeans, splicing them, adding the panel on the side to give it that bowed out look. So that means that the jeans or the barrel pant that they end up with has like a really stiff kind of outer edge. And I wanted something in between the lightweight linen and the stiff denim. So I thought a lightweight denim would work. If you want to get the pattern, you can find it at alwaysshineyourheart.com, or you could head to my Etsy store and get the digital download at shineyourheart.etsy.com. So there's a couple features on the pattern that I want to talk about before we get started, which I think are really important. The barrel pant comes as a full length. However, today we're going to be doing the short option. There's a line there that says cut here for the short barrel. Additionally, there's another line just above it that says cut here for optional cuff. And let me show you what that looks like. It is optional, but it just adds a little bit of interest to the pant. So we're basically cutting off the bottom of the pant and reattaching it, and then we're doing these two stitch lines. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, that's the first thing that I want to talk about. The second thing is, so before I move on, you want to make sure you cut your length first before you cut the part for the cuff. So we're just cutting this off and stitching it back on so that we have this little seam here. It's optional. You can omit it if you want. It's not a big deal. Second thing that I want to talk about is the side pleat. Now, let me show you what that looks like here. So when you are wearing the pant, the side pleat, basically what we're doing is bringing the two sides together and we're stitching them here at the bottom. And this kind of creates this sort of like billowy look, which adds to that sort of barrel effect. So the thing that gives it the barrel is that it's tapered at the ankle, more tapered at the ankle than it is in the outer hip. And so that's what we're doing. Pleat in there at the cuff, it gives it, it pulls it in, cinches it in, and it also gives it a really cute little piece of interest at the side. I love it. I love the way it looks. I think it looks great. What you'll need is at least 2 yards of fabric, and all the rest of the supplies are in the pattern instructions. Also, make sure that you transfer all your markings and your notches from the pattern onto the pant. So let's get started. Go ahead and cut out all your pieces, including your front and back pieces with your notches. Make all your markings. You'll need 4 pieces of pocket, and then the tie and the pocket. Don't forget to cut the heart out separately. So grab your tie and you're going to fold it in half and press it. Use steam and pressure to give it a nice crease. You're going to find the center all the way down the tie, and then you'll open it up and fold the 2 raw edges toward the center on both sides and press. You can do one side at a time, or you can do both sides at the same time, whatever is easiest for you. I have so much practice doing this that I just do one side a little bit and then I fold the other one as I go, so I can save a little bit of time here. But you want to do this down the entire strip. Once that's done, you're going to fold both sides together, and that creates the tie. So the most important piece here is to use a lot of steam and a lot of pressure. Along with the heat, you'll get a nice flat tie. And then we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the open edge to finish and close it. And that will complete your tie. Don't forget to back stitch at the front and the end. And when you get to the bottom, you're going to turn the corner and make sure you get the 2 top edges. When that's done, just set it aside and let's move on to the next step. Grab your 4 pocket pieces and make sure that you've transferred your notches and your markings from the pattern onto the pants as well as the pocket. You're going to, for all 4 pieces, bring right sides together, pin it in place, and then we'll take it over to the machine and we're going to stitch with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. This is important because it needs to match the other seam allowance that you're using for the entire pattern. So make sure that whatever you use for the other parts of the pattern, you use it for the pocket as well. Once that's done, you're going to bring it over to the iron. You're going to open it up and flatten the seam towards you. So you want the seam to be flat, moving away from the pant. You'll use steam and heat, flatten that out, iron it really, really good, and then we're going to do an 1/8 of an inch understitch, and this is what keeps your pants from trying to crawl out while you're wearing them or when your hand goes in and out. This keeps your pocket to the inside of your pant. It's like a little stay stitch, but it's called understitching. So once that's done, then you're going to turn the pant over and press it again. And this is what's going to give you that really nice finished edge from the outside. You want to have about an 1/8 of an inch overlap from the front to the inside of the pocket. I'll show you here what I'm talking about. A little lip right here, and that means that you won't be able to see the lining of the pocket when you're done. All right, bring one front panel and one back panel right sides together. We're going to match up the side seam and finish sewing the pocket together. So align the top edge and bring the top of the pockets together. They should align just perfectly. You're going to pin it and then make sure that you also pin the notches on both the front and the back pocket. Pin it all the way around. And then for the bottom, if you opted to do the cuff, the optional cuff, you're going to pin about halfway down and stop, because we do need to attach the cuff before we finish sewing the side seam completely together. So now let's take it over to the sewing machine, and we're going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance, back stitch at the front, and come down to where the pocket is, and you'll meet that 3/8 inch seam. Go ahead and follow that down, and then when you get to the pocket, you're going to lift your presser foot and turn, and you're going to go ahead and stitch all the way around that pocket bag, and you'll meet that other 3/8 inch seam allowance at the bottom, and make sure that you only stitch a little way down into the side seam, and we'll move on to adding the style detail. All right, grab your 4 pieces and we're going to reattach them to each leg. These will match up exactly, so if something seems a little off, it's because it is. So you can also pull it straight to make sure that you have attached the right piece, because they're all pretty similar in size. So just double check your work here, be mindful about it. Now let's take it over to the sewing machine and we'll stitch all 4 pieces at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now let's take it over to the iron and make sure that you press it really, really well. I definitely think that steam and ironing are the thing that separate homemade items from stuff that you find in stores. So just take your time, pay attention to the details, press the seam down away from the top part of the pant, so you want it towards the bottom of the pant, and use steam and a lot of pressure. We'll come back to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch an 1/8 of an inch away from that top raised lip, just like this. So we'll do 2 rows of stitching, we'll turn it, and we'll stitch a second row close to it. So you have something like this. Do that for both pieces, and then you're going to finish sewing the side seam together all the way to the bottom, bring it back over to the ironing board, and iron your seams flat. Now we're going to bring both back pieces together, right sides, and you're going to pin it along the inseam. You'll do this for the back piece and the front piece, and we'll take this over and stitch it at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Make sure you serge or zigzag stitch the outside edge, the raw edge of your pant, all on all edges. So you'll do this on the inseam, on the legs, and the pocket pieces, and this just prevents it from fraying. Now you're going to bring those two seams that you just created, and you're going to bring the front and the back crotch together, right sides together. You want to press the seams away from each other, and this just reduces the bulk that you find right down in the crotch area. And you're going to follow along the inner leg on both sides, pin all the way down. Again, make sure that you're zigzag stitching the raw edge just to prevent fraying for the entire pant. Once you have everything serged or zigzagged, we're going to bring the pant over to the ironing board, and you're going to lay the seam flat and press. Okay, for the hem, so you're going to start by turning the bottom, the raw edge up 3/8 inch, press it, use a lot of steam, give it some pressure, make it real nice and crispy, and then you're going to turn it up again 1.5 inches. For consistency, just check your work as you go and make sure that it's consistent across the board. Now, for the pleat, what you're going to do is from the center seam, you're going to mark out 1.5 inches and then 3 inches. You'll have 2 marks on each side, 1.5 and 3 inches away. Now, grab the outer pleat, the outer line, and you're going to bring that to the center seam. Your pleat should be folded where that first line is, the 1.5 inch mark is. It should be folded underneath at that mark. Do the same thing for the other side. You're going to squeeze the outer mark and you're going to fold it in towards the center, pin it, and of course, line everything up, give it a good press, keep everything in place once you're happy with where it looks. Measure it across the bottom and make sure that on both sides they're consistent. So the finished size on these is 10.75. So just double check your work and make sure that both of the legs measure the same. Since we have 2 legs to do, I wanted to show you a different perspective for this second leg so you can see it. It might help someone out there who's not totally sure. So you can see I'm pinching and bringing that outer mark to the center, lining everything up. It can be a little bit fiddly, but take your time. There's no rush. And then you want to press it. This will make things so much easier too when you get it over to the sewing machine. So we will stitch this just about 1/8 inch away from that bottom edge, stitch from the inside. So we use that bottom cuff as a guideline. And you'll, once you're done with this, you'll turn it and stitch the outer lower edge about 1/8 inch from the edge. For the waistband, you're going to turn the top edge over 3/8 inch all the way around. Use a lot of steam and heat, use some pressure, and then you'll do a second turn 1.5 inches down. Make sure you take your time, check your work, measure it as you go. It does matter because the elastic has to fit in there. So we just want to make sure that we do this right and take our time. To mark where the drawstring goes, you're going to measure down 1.5 inches. And what I like to do just to make it easier on myself is take that bottom edge and fold it back up to meet the top edge, and that'll give you the halfway mark. Just put a little mark there with some chalk, and then you're going to measure 3/4 of an inch from the center seam on both sides. This is where we're going to add the stitching for the drawstring. Now, I like to add a little T at the top, and that tells me, because when you're in there doing the stitching, you can't always see what you're doing. So these little lines, these little eye lines at the top and the bottom tell me where to stop and where to start. Now, my buttonhole, because we're making buttonholes for this essentially, but my buttonhole attachment does not work for this machine, so I have to do it manually. And you take some practice, take some zhuzhing. It's not perfect, but we get the job done. It looks decent enough. And then what you're going to do is go back, and you don't want to snip into those threads. So just be careful as you go in and clip through the fabric that you're not cutting those threads back open. Now, for the waistband elastic, there are so many different methods that you can use to put elastic into a waistband for a pant. For this, we're going to be using, we're going to create a little casing essentially, and we're going to feed the elastic through, and then we'll top stitch it down later. This is just one of many methods that I've used. So this is the one I'm teaching you today. You're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from that bottom edge, and you're going to leave a little hole at the end, just big enough for us to get the elastic through. And so make sure you backstitch at the stop and the start just to give it a little bit of reinforcement. And then you're going to take a safety pin, put it into your elastic, and you're going to feed it through. You're going to use a safety pin to guide the elastic all the way through. This takes a little bit of time. Hopefully you measured your work and there's enough room for that elastic to go in there. If there isn't, your elastic will fold in on itself, which you do not want. Once you get to the end, you're going to overlap the two raw ends of your elastic together, and you're going to do a little X stitch just to reinforce it, make sure it doesn't ever break apart inside of the pant. And then you'll just shimmy the rest of the elastic back into the waistband, and we're going to top stitch that little hole closed. Additionally, we'll do another stitch along the top at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to give the elastic a little bit more security in there so it doesn't fold over on itself. For the drawstring, we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with the elastic. We're just going to use a safety pin to guide it all the way around the waistband. When you get to the end, you're going to want to pull that through just a little bit, give yourself a little bit of room, and then you'll tie a knot on the end of both sides of the drawstring to prevent it from being pulled back into the casing. So let's prep our pieces for the back pockets. You're going to turn the sides in according to the measurements on the pattern. You're going to turn the sides in first, use a lot of steam and heat. This is your best friend. Steam and heat and pressure are going to be what really give your pieces a finished look. Turn the bottom edge now, and then if you are working with a fabric that has a lot of bulk in the corners, you can go ahead and clip them to reduce the bulk. Make sure you don't clip too close to the edge, just so that you can catch the seam when you're top stitching later on. And then on the top edge, you're going to turn the raw edge over once, press it down, and then you're going to turn it over again, use tons of steam, some heat, and then flip it over. And I like to do one press on the top just to make sure that it's super creased. So what we're going to do now is open up the edges. You're going to keep the top edge folded down because this is the only thing that we're going to top stitch now. You're going to follow the back along the folded edge. You're going to stitch 2 rows of stitching. So you're going to start right along the edge, about 1/8 of an inch away from that bottom edge, and then you're going to come back and do 1/4 inch away from that first stitch line, and that's going to hold that top in place. Okay, the first thing that you're going to want to do before you put the pocket on the back is stitch the applique to the back of the pocket. So we've already stitched the top. Now we're just going to do 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around the outer edge to apply it to the back of the pocket. So let's do that now. All right, so one thing I highly recommend is when you are trying to figure out the placement for your pocket, that you get a pair of pants out of your closet that you really like how the pockets look. And what you're gonna do is measure from this top finished edge down to the top edge of the pocket. And you'll measure from the center back to the top of the pocket here, mark it. And you'll also measure from the center back to the bottom of the pocket and mark it. And what I've done is basically applied the pocket, I put the pants on, you kind of go back and forth unless you get the perfect fit the first time, but you kind of go back and forth and figure out placement. Pin it really good. I like to, mark it where I think it should go, pin it, put them on, get the final placement situation, pin it, and then we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and stitch it. Pinning it really good helps. Also, after you apply the applique, you want to make sure that you press it really nice and flat, because going around the curves can sometimes warp the square. So if you press it, it flattens it all out and makes it nice and crispy for you to be able to get these lines and get the placement just right. So let's take it to the machine and sew it on. Take your time, but you're going to do several back stitches because this is, you're going to use it a lot. So it's a high stress area. This is why sometimes you see jeans that have little rivets here just for extra reinforcement, but we're going to use the thread here to give ourselves some basic, decent reinforcement. So take your time, make sure that the front of the pant is out of the way. When you lay this down, you're going to want to try to get it as flat as you possibly can. And take your time. There's no rush here, no reason to go fast. You want a quality looking piece, which taking your time will get you. All right. Looks pretty good. And voila, your pants are done. They turned out so freaking cute. Look at these back pockets. I'm so proud of myself. And I love the side pleat. I love the design of this. I love how it just makes the pants billow a little bit more and just the aesthetic that it gives. Okay, so the pants are done. I wanted to show you how they came out. Let me show you how cute they are. Side view. So you can totally see let me get a close-up of side pleat. What do you guys think? I love how they came out. I'm going to make a few more, and I definitely still want to do the flat front with the elastic in the back. just because I want to learn how to do that. And I think it would be really cute on this pant. So anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any suggestions for what you would like to see for the next sew along, let me know in the comments and I'll add it to the list. Love you guys. Thanks so much. And I'll see you on the next video.